don't know how you make money on that, but we're there. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I think we got everybody that we need. All right, well, thank you for attending the December 14th Planning and Zoning meeting. We'll go ahead and get started with a moment of silent prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Again, this evening we have a public hearing, and we're going to get started with that first. But before we do, we'll go ahead and do a roll call. Steve, make sure we have everybody here.
Mayor Hatfield.
Here.
Mr. St. John.
Here.
Mr. Gokenauer.
Joe, can you hear?
Unmute, Joe.
Here. Mr. Lawrence. Mr.
Here.
Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Ryba.
Here.
Mr. Elliott.
Here.
All right, thank you. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started with the public hearing this evening. We have a public hearing for Mr. and Mrs. Mayhew at 147 North Columbus Street. It's a variance. Mr. Mayhew is requesting a variance of a 25-foot maximum height restriction for an accessory building at his residence located at 147 North Columbus Street to construct to the height of 28 feet. I will share with you too that, as part of this, Mr. Mayhew did come to the village, shared his plans. This was something I think I'll say that we maybe overlooked. And so the building got started, the trusses got ordered, and we're now at a spot where we're wanting to make sure that this is corrected and conforming via the zoning restrictions. So having said that, I go ahead and I guess we'll open up, Mr. Mayhew, with having you kind of describe for us exactly.
We need to swear in any witnesses, Mayor.
Yep, thank you, Dave. Got carried away there. So anybody that's going to speak this evening, I don't know. I guess we have one person, Mrs. Behrens, who is also going to speak, and then Mr. Mayhew. Is there anybody else that's going to present? Okay, I'd like to have you, Steve, everybody that is going to, if you would, please raise your right hand, and Sarah will swear you in at this time.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Dave, while we're doing that, I don't know other than
Mrs. Behrens, could you take yourself off mute and just say I do?
I did say I do.
I
Yes.
saw you on the video, but we
Okay.
have to hear it so she can
Yep,
put it down.
I do.
Thank you.
Yep.
all right, thank you. As far as exhibits, Steve, I guess while we'll do that, we'll go ahead and take care of any other anything that we need to make sure we have marked as an exhibit.
Sure. And that's one of the windows I closed to get rid of my echo. Just 1 second, please. Zoning,
I mean, there's the formal submittal package
yes.
that was included.
There are 3 exhibits. Exhibit A is the variance application. Exhibit B is the public notice. And Exhibit C is the mailing list, proof of mailing.
Okay. Thank you.
With the applicant's permission, then we'll mark all that collection of documents as Exhibit A for identification purposes. Is that okay for you, Mr. Mayhew?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so from there, we'll go ahead, Dave, and have you, Mr. Mayhew, kind of share with everybody exactly what you're looking for in the variance this evening.
Well, I mean, as it was mentioned earlier, we started the building and we got the permit, started construction, got all the materials delivered, and Mr. Piles and I had a conversation, and we came to the realization that originally when I applied for the permit and got the permit, we were under the impression that the limit was 35 feet. And so we were under that because everything I submitted had 28 on it. And then we were in the middle of building and Steve and I talked and came to the realization that it was 25, not 35. But we already at that point had the posts in the ground and the better part of the frame up around the building. And I had the trusses here. So had a lot of conversation over a 2-week period because, you know, obviously we wanted to make this correct as far as, you know, all the paperwork or whatever we needed to do. And so I'm asking that, you know, we're 36 inches above the 25 foot limit. So I'm asking for approval for the building so that all the records are clear and we have appropriate permission to build the building.
All right, thank you.
This is David Bream. Mr. Mayhew, can you confirm one of the requirements is that the secondary structure be less elevation than the primary structure? Can you confirm the elevation of your primary structure?
Well, approximately the house, the peak of my home is about 40 feet, but the geographics or the topography of the ground, there's about a 14-foot difference in ground height from where the house is lower to where the garage is. So the garage is, even at 25 or 28 feet, the garage is still significantly lower than my house. As a matter of fact, if you go up to the second floor of my home and look out the window, you're looking over the garage.
And then can you also share what your intent is with the building? It's a large building. I know there's been some questions about, are you going to use this for a commercial use or strictly for personal use?
It's personal use. There's no business intent whatsoever. I just need a building to basically big enough to put my toys in and to tinker in.
Okay.
I've been asked actually today, you know, if it was going to be a business, and I have way more than a full-time job. I'm not looking to start any businesses or anything. It's all personal use.
All right. Thank you. So with that, you know, I know, Steve, we just have, you said Miss Amy Behrens is the only person so far. Is that the case?
That's correct.
Okay.
I had one email earlier, a couple weeks ago when we sent out the letters. That person seemed to be most interested in that commercial use. And when I responded about, that's my understanding, that was not the intent. When I responded with the restrictions on a home occupation and that it would need a subsequent approval, that seemed to satisfy that commenter.
Okay. Thank you. So from there, we'll go ahead, Mrs. Behrens, and give you a moment here to provide some insight on what you would like to talk about regarding the property variance application.
Yes, I was not fully clear on whether this was just a variance for the roof, the height, or if it was for the actual building itself. I've created a few notes and I'd sort of like to read from those notes just so I stay on track. So, and again, some of this is probably going to address the structure itself, the size of this massive barn in the backyards. And so again, I didn't know if that was what was being discussed or if it was only the height, but these are my notes. It is a massive structure. It interferes with my view from my back porch and from my patio. I can only imagine that if the game plan is to work on cars and trucks, and specifically semi-trucks, I am not a friend with Mrs. Mayhew on Facebook, but one of my concerned neighbors sent me a snip, which I will gladly send to someone's email, where Debbie Mayhew says that the game plan is for Dave to restore semi-trucks as well. And if you look at the pictures, which again, I also have pictures of it and I'm glad to send them to you, the doors for this massive structure are absolutely large enough for a semi-truck. So if you can just imagine for a moment that I am having people over for dinner on both my back porch or on my patio, seeing semi-trucks come and go through there would be really disruptive to my existence. I'm curious too if a licensed contractor or building is not required, or if just anyone can build it. I am aware of the fact that my neighbor immediately to my south, I believe his name is Richard Lynn. I think he's sitting next to Dave Mayhew. He and his son and father appear to be the ones building this structure. Not sure if, if they're licensed builders or not, but when we had a big gust of wind a few weeks ago, the structure itself actually sort of fell in from the west side. Also, Debbie Mayhew posted that on her Facebook page, and I have a snip of her talking about that. So, in terms of just sort of what's the future of this? How long will it stand? Will it be a danger to people? I just am very unclear about that. When I bought my house 16 years ago, the closing was at Wendell Davidson's office. He said to me laughingly and to the other people in the room, well, the good news is that no one can interfere with your view and no building is ever going to happen because you've got peaceful neighbors there in the cemetery. I want to invite all of you before making your decision, please park in my driveway, walk down and take a look from our back porch and the patio, because it is as clear as it can be. I also have pictures that I'm glad to send to someone's email address that show before pictures and after pictures, and it's remarkable. I've literally lost half of my view of the cemetery. I have an aunt who is buried in the Sunbury Cemetery. I can no longer see her grave from my back porch. And I would question too, are there not people whose loved ones are buried in the cemetery that are disturbed by this massive structure? I've heard from people just standing in line at CVS saying, what is that big castle that's being built? I think it's so large, it's really rather striking. Let's see, not only is the height of the house, but the circumference of this structure, it seems to be the size of a whole other house. Again, I mentioned the graves. David Mayhew's wife posted on Facebook that he plans to fix up cars and semi-trucks. This is a backyard where people grill out, play cornhole. It's a neighborhood. How does this fit in with Sunbury's future plans? I don't think that would ever go on in places like Dublin or Upper Arlington. Wasn't aware that there was a permit that was for this massive structure. When I bought my house, I was under the impression that you had to get a permit even for a shed over a certain amount of feet. This is massive compared to just a shed. I believe it affects my property values. The view is always a part of the whole package. Sunbury is city in the country. One of the Sunbury goals is to preserve that country heritage. If someone wanted to build a shed for their kids to raise rabbits and join 4-H, I'd be the first one to help them build that. But that's not what this is. There's no way that that size structure is just somebody's plan to tinker around with cars. It has to be a business. And in fact, Mr. Mayhew has a car sitting in his front yard right now that has a for sale sign in it, and it has been there for at least 3 or 4 weeks. Is that the plan? To fix cars and trucks up and park them in the front yard? If you don't believe me, please drive past. I also have pictures that I can send to someone's email. If this building is allowed as it exists right now, well, would I be able to build something, a large structure in my backyard? Because I don't understand how that could be a part of preserving the neighborhood, preserving the country feel in the city. If you want to fix up cars and sell them, great. It's a hobby, a retirement income. We'll do that in an industrial zoned area, but not in a residential area like Sunbury. It just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sure that Richard Lynn, to my south, approves of this because he's the one building it. He's got skin in the game, and I'm not sure if anybody is thinking of the long-term plans. I looked up on the Delaware County Auditor's website. I believe Mr. Mayhew's property is valued at $123,000. But my neighbor immediately to my north just bought the house, and he paid $379,000. From the time he looked at the house and placed the offer, there was no big structure out there. But by the time he closed, here's this big structure. I'm sorry he's not here representing his own interests because he too was concerned about this large barn, but I can't attest to that. Again, if houses are going to start selling for $379,000 in the village of Sunbury, I think that having a big barn in somebody's backyard is going to affect all of our property values. I just don't know where it will stop. If maybe everybody will put one up. It just doesn't make sense to me that this has been allowed in a village in a city where it's residential. Our homes are not only where we live, but it's also an investment. It feels like a massive structure like this diminishes my home value. This surely feels a step in the wrong direction for the future of Sunbury. So that's all I have. I'm concerned about it. And again, I more than welcome anybody to walk up our driveway and take a look from our patio or from our porch. It's all you see. It took away half of the view. And I've again got before and after pictures that I would be happy to send.
Thank you. Steve, anybody else at this point?
No, that's it. Nobody
Okay.
over.
All right. Well, and again, just as you know how the public hearing process works, we have it available for public comment, and then we'll actually go into our zoning meeting and then continue discussing this process and this application at that point in the meeting. Mr. Parkinson or Mr. Bream, do you have anything to add before we close out the public hearing?
Yeah, I have nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
No, nothing.
All right. Mr. Mayhew, any additional comments that you'd like to make?
Other than just to reaffirm what I've already said, as far as, the comments made about the car in my front yard. Yeah, there's a car in my front yard. It belongs to an 88-year-old friend that we just helped move into a retirement home, and he's asked us to sell it for him. And so it's advertised and it's out there for sale. But I like cars. I think, anyone that knows me would say that, but I have no intention, no commercial intention. I'm not going to have a shop where I'm, buying cars and fixing them up and selling them. That's not it. I have 8 cars myself, and I tinker with them and I work on them. And as far as, the comments about a semi, I have, and my wife has obviously put it on Facebook, thought about, restoring one again for me. And so, that is something that I talked about, but again, there's no commercial intent or anything else. And, we're not done. We're going to landscape the property, and we're going to replant grass and things. So we've got a whole plan for it because we want it to look good as ourselves. It's not, something that we're building to farm with or really be a barn. That's not what I'm using it for. So that's it.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that's it, we will go ahead and close out the public hearing portion of the meeting. And Mrs. Clark, thank you for. And we'll move on to the zoning.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, go back here. We'll go ahead and I guess continue with this as the first item on our agenda. And so first up on that would be the staff report. So Steve, I don't know if you have anything you want to add or comment.
No, other than you do have a report. I showed you the plans, and it had taken me a while to get the plan that I did receive. And it's an error upon my part. It meets half of the requirements, which is it's lower than the primary structure in terms of height, but it is 20 as planned, 20 and approved, sadly, on my part, 28 feet instead of 25. I did look at lot coverage. It's fine. The setbacks are within our guidelines.
Yeah, I know those are really large lots, and that wasn't mentioned. But what is the actual size of the lot?
Oh,
I don't know.
Looks like it's on a separate parcel at 0.39 acres.
Yeah. But I mean, including the home and everything, it's got to be approaching an acre, I would say.
The front part of the property is 0.172.
There's 3 parcels in my property, and those are 2 of them. There's a third that runs across there.
And total area, I'm sorry, just the total acreage of your lot itself, is that like 3/4, half?
The survey that I have is just over 1 for total. When
Okay.
when we had the property surveyed, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to share that too, because it is obviously one of the larger lots right there on Columbus Street that back up to the cemetery that most all those houses have.
Dave, this is Dave Bream speaking. According to the auditor's website, your front parcel, which is like an L-shaped piece, kind of has the house and back to your garage, and then it's got the, kind of a strange kind of tail that goes off to the south.
Right.
The auditor's site, which, and these are just tax parcels, maybe not surveyed parcels, has that as 0.172 acres. And then the back parcel by the auditor is 0.39. Is there a third parcel, or those, and it doesn't show anything else, it shows,
Yes.
shows
yeah, so-
Lynn to the north then, and it shows the cutout house, Steve Roby to the south. And then it shows, beyond Steve.
Yeah, there's 3 parcels. So there's the parcel you're talking about, the house is on, and then it goes back to the back of like where Steve Roby lives. And then there is it's narrow. I don't exactly remember how many feet, but it runs from Steve Roby's, his property, so many feet out, and goes the entire length over to the house south of Steve Roby's. And then there's the big parcel where the garage is that runs from Keith Lynn's property across all the way down to Samantha Hunt's property behind Roby, where the garage is. So there's when I get my tax bill, I actually get 2 different tax bills. One tax bill has the piece of property where the house is and the piece of property where the garage is. And then I get a second tax bill for that little stretch that goes across the top of my property every 6 months.
Okay. Thank you. I didn't mean to create I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood from a lot perspective. We weren't talking about, 50 by 180 or, a normal size
Right.
lot in development. Okay. So Steve, that was everything that you had for this?
yes.
Okay. I guess we'll open it up to other zoning board members. If you guys have questions you'd like to ask Mr. Mayhew or Mr. Parkinson, Mr. Bream, anybody?
So everything besides the height meets the code already, and we have a permit for it. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct. I mean, and technically, what was discussed earlier, the permit was issued with the
Right.
height as it is planned. It was subsequently discovered that that height based on our code was 3 feet too high. The building is already there. The materials are there. It's framed. They quit work on it because the only way to resolve it at this point is either to tear it down and lower it, or to get a variance to allow the building to be 3 feet higher. Other than that, it complies with the code, our code in every respect.
And so on this piece, though, as pointed out, it was there's a portion about the size relative to the house, and then overall lot coverage. Is there something else that would because Mrs. Barron's
Lot coverage.
Oh, Dave,
hit the mute again.
Oops, sorry. It meets, as Steve testified to, it meets the other requirements. Because he's got such a large lot, he can have a large outbuilding. He's got almost a 4/10 of an acre there, which is, at least double what you have in the subdivision just on his rear vacant lot, not including his house lot. So he can have a large building back there based on the lot coverage requirements and the setbacks. When you're in a subdivision, you have a smaller lot, you could never build anything like this because you don't have the land to do it. But even though he's a town, he's got quite a bit of land. So it meets all the setbacks and the lot coverage, the requirement that it can't be higher than the house, which is that way in portions of our code, but not here. Here it says, the house is supposed to be 35 feet, which probably his house predates the zoning code because it's probably above 35 feet, which a lot of houses in town predate our zoning code. Some of in the older sections. In this side, it has to be 35 feet on the home and 25 feet on the outbuilding, and he's at 28. But that's the only thing before you tonight is the variance on the height.
So
Right.
I don't know. Candidly, I don't know how we can go back and tell them to tear it down at this point, right? I guess my only question or concern, and I think just for your neighbors and everyone, the main concern everyone talked about is that the using the property for commercial or whatever opportunity there may be to treat it as a quote unquote shop. I guess so I don't know, Mr. Bream, is there recourse for anyone if that does happen? And that would be my only concern at this point.
Well, somebody that's using their property for something that's not a permitted use under the zoning code either has to get a permit for it or they would be cited. So if he were to, he's testified tonight under oath that he plans on working on his own personal vehicles. To the extent he does that, it's entirely permissible. You can have a vehicle, you can have several vehicles and park them in your garage and work on them. If it's not a commercial enterprise, you're not doing it for profit, then it's fine in a residential area. If he wants to do something beyond that, then he's got to come in and apply either for some type of a home occupation, which is where you have your residence and your occupation on the same structure or on the same lot, or you'd have to, do a change of zoning, which again, you're normally not going to get a change in zoning just because you want to do commercial in a residential area. So to the extent he violates that he's in violation of the zoning code, and that's what we have a zoning inspector for, is to go around and make sure that people aren't doing those things.
Okay.
But to build a big outbuilding, to be able to do a hobby that's not for profit, that's perfectly allowable in our codes and really most zoning codes.
And taking the height away from that comment, the in our code, what garners how big a building you can build is basically, again, removing the height restriction would be lot coverage, I guess. If I wanted to put a shed on a skid or a full-blown garage or pole building or whatever, that's it. I just want to make sure thinking about that right, Dave, to kind of follow up on what Greg's asking, but simply would be the lot coverage aspect of itself.
I agree with you, Tommy. I think what the code is trying to imply is the proportionality in comparison with the lot. And this is far under, just because you have a bigger lot doesn't mean you can't put a bigger building on it. That's what it does mean. It means you can put a bigger building on it. The whole issue, just height alone, especially with the elevation and the comparison to the height of the main structure, I'm comfortable moving forward with approving this.
Okay. I didn't mean to take over your comments there, Greg, but I just wanted to clarify the only limiting factor other than height would then be self.
Understand? No, that's okay. I understand.
And then the last thing I was going to say, I apologize. I meant to mention this. I think it was in one of the documents. Was it complies with all the setbacks, so it's not, up against one property line or another. I mean, it's within the setbacks in the residential district.
I did go up and drive up through the cemetery and around to take a look at it. I mean, it is definitely, no question, it's a big building. I don't know personally that it doesn't fit the overall character of that street, where you have large houses, large lots. That probably will definitely be one of the largest outbuilding. But I think proportionally, that was my concern, and I think I would agree with what you just said, Joe, as far as proportionality to what we see on the street. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Motion by Mr. St. John to approve, and I'm sorry, Mr. Elliott, you second that?
I'll second. Yep.
Second by Mr. Elliott. Further discussion? Roll call?
Mayor Hatfield,
Yes.
Mr. St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Gokenhour,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott.
Yes.
6 ayes. Variance approved.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That is all we have in front of us this evening. So next up would be visitors. And based on previous feedback, I don't believe we have any other visitors.
Correct.
Next up then would be a motion to approve the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes from the September 28th meeting?
Tommy, I'll move to approve those minutes.
Thank you. Motion to approve by Mr. Ryba.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gokenhour. Third by Mr. Elliott. These are really good minutes tonight. Anything we need to add or change?
I didn't see anything.
I'm sorry, Joe, I missed that.
I didn't see anything.
Okay. If there are no changes, then roll call on the minutes.
Mr. St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Gokenhour,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Ryba,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Hatfield.
Yes.
They're approved.
All right. Next up is the zoning report. I know everybody's got a copy of that. Steve, you want any comments you'd like to make or?
No, not too much. We did get the ISO rating for our building department, and we'd previously been unrated, so we made a big improvement over unrated. Still work to be done, but it was good to go through that process, and now we've got some both feedback and some measures to start, some measures to use to start from to improve. Housing's been slow but steady still. And people are still building decks, garages, those types of things.
Anybody have any questions for Steve? All right, no questions. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Next up is new business. Anything new or old business that anybody would like to bring up this evening?
I just had two things that came out of the services committee meeting, both related to residential development. I know we actively work a list of potential zoning changes. Two that were recommended to come to this board for consideration. One would be residential street lighting. One thing that we do in commercial development is do a really good job making sure the directionality of light is really focused on the development itself, whereas our residential street lighting, they're globes, they're acorn, that go in 360 degrees, up, down, everywhere. The new standard typically in residential neighborhoods is going to be more of a directional type light with a can that's illuminating downwards and not towards the streets, unnecessarily right away or homes. So I think Dave Parkinson, potentially at our next zoning meeting, we can maybe have a couple exhibits to look at, to consider. But just wanted to tee that up for our next meeting. We do have quite a few residential neighborhoods queued up for development, and it'd be great if we could get the standard ironed out before those developments break ground. The second one, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tommy.
No, I was going to provide some additional comment. I mean, the globes that we have in Sunbury now are they were low sodium or high sodium lights, which are kind of give that orange glow to them. And so when we started moving to LED technology, that obviously created, I'm getting in because I'm not the engineer, all the Kelvin ratings, but we had color lights and substantially brighter lights. That's added to this. You drive down the street and you can see multiple colored lights. You can see much brighter lights, which are all a good thing, but because of the type of light we have, it's spraying light everywhere as opposed to reflective to the street. So decided that it really made sense that we look at, I mean, there's certain things we can do to fix the lighting situation where there are lights that exist today through different types of bulbs, but what we wanted to do was take a different direction, because nowadays with LED, they can get very directional. And I think, Joe, you provided a great example. If you go back to the high school, you can see that it provides great coverage on the sidewalk and along the road, but would be impacting houses around. Just, I think more than anything, it's the technology change that has problem, in existence. And so we want to make sure that forward on developments that we're addressing this with a much more directional type fixture. And the question of, does it matter if we leave one development and are going to go to a new development and see a different style of street light? That's where we really want to get your all the way in, talk about, okay, what do we want to do going forward? So just wanted to add to that. Sorry, Joe, you were still going.
Oh, no problem. I appreciate the context. Thank you. And thanks, Mr. Parkinson, for what you've done so far with the services committee, especially about recommending fixes to our existing lamps. The second issue, which is probably going to take a little bit more discussion because it includes more factors, would be residential street width, fire hydrant placement, on-street parking, and also mailbox location. we've got some different neighborhoods that have issues with parking on either side of the street. It's causing issues with bus routes, mail delivery, where we've got fire hydrants and mailboxes on one side of the street, and we still permit parking on that side of the street as well. So I think this is probably a little bit more of a discussion, maybe a coordinated effort as we get into platting and planning with the post office, Delco, and our school district. But we also want to probably do some informal things, having discussions with developers as these new residential neighborhoods come about. But it'd probably be advantageous if we get some code amendments in there that just provided more of a framework and what we're looking for. And it'll solve issues for years to come, in my opinion. It's going to be hard to fix the things that we've already done or that are in place today, but going forward, I think this will make a big difference.
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Any other new or unfinished business? I guess I'll just go around the horn here. All right. Mr. Riva,
Nope.
Mr. Lawrence,
No.
Mr. Elliott.
Nothing for me.
Okay. All right. Next up's our meeting in January. I don't know, Dave, from a term perspective, is everybody okay? I didn't mean to put you on the spot there, but I didn't check. Steve, I don't know, from a swearing in perspective or reappointment. We'll have to.
I didn't check.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. I just saw January 2021 and realized that something we gotta think about. All right. Anybody have anything? Mr. Parkinson, Alan, Steve, Dave?
Yeah, I'll just take a quick second. Greg, do you have any particular expertise in lighting?
No, not really, not lighting per se. Probably not the detail that you're probably looking for either.
Okay.
HVAC, come find me. But
I think he's looking for a scapegoat. So good call on your part.
Tommy, do you have any expertise in lighting?
I can discern orange and white and
You're it.
working for a phone company that makes off-white, beige, and cream-colored phones for many, many years. I can do degrees of white. All right. If that's it, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. If there's nothing else, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call, Steve. That was, I made the motion. Mr. Riva seconded.
Mr. Gokenhour,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Riva,
Yes.
Mr. Elliott,
yes.
Mayor Hatfield,
Yes.
and Mr. St. John.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned.
All right. Well, Merry Christmas, everybody. If I don't talk to you beforehand.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.